micron pens, making hatch drawings. There are some things that you definitely want to pay attention to. There are some things that you definitely do not want to do. If experience has taught me anything, it is that, especially with hatch, some habits are hard to break. But I'm going to challenge you to break them, because the more of those old habits that we have, regardless of how good they are, if we can add other things to the mix, we have more options and more possibilities to make more cool things in the future. It may seem a little uncomfortable at first, but oftentimes those things are for your own good. The value scale is going to go by pretty fast. You have some options there in terms of how you make your own. It doesn't have to look exactly like the one that I have in the demo, but you want to make sure that you have at least 5 different values, white paper not included. So really, we have 5 that we ink and 1 that is the white of the paper, so that we get used to creating subtle differences over the course of many values to give us the most significant contrast that we can get. There will be some reminders both at the beginning and the end. And have fun.
Beginning in the darkest area, clearly my marks are going to be closer together and they're going to overlap more. That's how I get the really dark values. I also want to be very specific around my edges so that I get a nice, clean, and careful line and corner going on. Showing control over my media is going to be really super important. And clearly, this is sped up, so don't try to go this fast. As I move over into the lightest areas, my marks will be shorter and they'll be spaced further apart. This looks kind of funny and feels weird to put a few random marks in the middle of a white area at first, but in time, it gets better. And then now that the lightest area is done, and I move gradually darker and darker, remember, don't outline. Organize your marks so that you get an even value and appearance throughout each one of the sections that you're dealing with. You work your way into the medium and the darker values, the lines get closer, and eventually you're going to start actually having some of them overlap. Every once in a while, make sure you sort of zoom out and see if any areas within your shape need evening out. Putting a few more marks here and there will help, because remember, we want consistent and smooth values within each shape, regardless of what that shape is. At the end of the process, even things out, clean up your edges, make sure something is as dark as it needs to be when you need it to be that dark, and then you should have at least 5 different values within your value scale.
So what to avoid? Let's just talk about hatch for a moment. We know that we're looking at short, straight lines. We know that if we put them closer together and if we overlap them, that we can get darker values. Let's avoid creating rows. We don't want any sort of a pattern. Definitely avoid tic-tac-toe kinds of things, even if you have 3 or 4. We don't want just lines of things. Don't go really long, right? Especially if you're given some shape. Even if that shape isn't very tall, do not go from side to side, top to bottom, however you want to phrase it, right? This is not the way we want to see hatch. That's just not very sophisticated. Avoid hairy kinds of curvy kinds of lines. Don't do that. That's no bueno. The last thing I want to mention, don't outline. You'll never be able to get rid of that. And in some instances, you can probably come through and make it look like there isn't any or much of an outline around the perimeter. But at some point, you're going to need an area to be lighter, and you won't be able to get rid of the outline. There are certainly things that will be best practices and things that you want to avoid. Don't fall back on crutches. Don't fall back on cliche. The point is that you push yourself forward and try to expand your own personal possibility.
So we've looked at different things to avoid. What's good, what's bad, what do we really mean by hatch, and what don't we mean by hatch? We have seen a value scale, and what we should be able to do is go from very dark to really light. Of course, one of the cardinal sins is outlining, so naturally we're not going to do that. But those other things that we want to avoid, keep those in mind. No long lines, no hairy curved lines, no patterns or rows upon rows of shading. Variety is going to be the key, and I fully expected this to be a little bit uncomfortable at first, but practice makes it better. You know what? It also makes it easier. So get out of your comfort zone and have fun.